have the Vaccines Minister joining us now. Nadhim Zahawi, I wanted to just, before we get any further, I just want to get your reaction to an interview we did with the Health Secretary last week, in which he said how glad he was that the school meals programme had been extended, which was, of course, a campaign by Marcus Rashford, the footballer. So then I asked him, well, logically speaking, given the government opposed this and he voted against it, did he now regret voting against it? Here was his response. Given how glad you are that it's now happening, do you regret voting against it?
Well, of course, I'm pleased that we're making sure that...
That wasn't the question. I just asked if you. I asked if you regretted. But hang on, it's a very important question because you wouldn't have done it without Marcus Rashford campaigning. My question for you is, given how glad you now are that it's happening, do you regret voting against it? It's a yes or no.
Well, as I say, I'm really glad that it's happening.
But do you regret it? Do you regret voting against it?
Well, I'll put it this way. In the first lockdown, we took this action. And now, as you say, we're in a second...
Secretary, you only have to say yes or no, whether you regret it. You either regret it or you don't.
Well, I'm really glad that the situation's been resolved.
What's extraordinary, Minister, is that that clip's now had nearly 30 million views. It's the most watched clip in Good Morning Britain history. And it makes Matt Hancock look shifty and evasive and not prepared to own something which the government clearly conceded had been a mistake, or you wouldn't have done a U-turn on it. You also voted against extending the school meals programme. So let me just ask you the same question. Do you now regret that, and do you think that you managed to reach the right decision after making the wrong one?
So my answer is, with the benefit of hindsight, of course, you want to make the right decision each and every time. You don't get everything right in every vote.
So it was a mistake.
Some votes are stunts. So today, Labour's pulling a stunt on universal credit.
Well, let's not go to today. I just want to ask on that one thing. Given the government did a U-turn and you voted in favour of not extending the school meals, do you just accept now it was a mistake, and if you had your time again, you would vote differently?
Look, of course, with the benefit of hindsight, you want to do the right thing every time. You would vote in the way that you end up actually delivering, right? You're absolutely right. Matt Hancock has done thousands of hours of interviews. He's been at this literally.
So why do you think he found it so hard? Given you've just admitted that you would have voted differently, why did he find it so hard? Given he's the Health Secretary,
Piers, he's done thousands of hours of interviews since March. He's been working 7 days a week, 19-hour days, managing a pandemic that every country is struggling with, whether it's Germany, which are having to introduce further
but listen, none of that justifies not being able to do what you've just done in 10 seconds, which is when you admit... My point being, when ministers admit making a mistake and change it to the right thing to do, which is what happened with school meals, that is something you should just own and just say to the public, we get it, we listened to Marcus Rashford, good on him, we got it wrong, we've now got it right, and we're sorry for getting it wrong. It's really not difficult.
I hear you, but you also, and this is really important for your viewers, sometimes you get votes in Parliament like today, which is a stunt. It has no real impact on the outcome.
Yeah, but you're going to find yourself in the same position today, aren't you? Because you say, that it's really important for the viewers to know this. So you have the situation where Labour forces a vote calling on the government to retain the £20 a week increase in universal credit. And you're going to vote against it because you say it's a political stunt. All it's going to look like is, if you oppose that, is that you do not want poorer families to maintain that £20 uplift a week in the benefits that they rely on.
So to your question, first of all, it is a stunt. We've put 280 billion into the economy to help the most needy families. The reason I say to you, I'll abstain. I won't vote against it. I'll abstain because it's a stunt. Labour, Keir Starmer saying he'll scrap universal credit. A few months ago, I met the civil servants that introduced universal credit because it's a big deployment programme to learn from me, for my deployment programme. And of course, it's a massive, massive safety net for the poorest families in our country. They held their head in their hands when they heard Keir Starmer saying he will scrap universal credit.
OK, let's put that to one side. The £20 a week increase that families have come to rely on, you can't, in good conscience, say that you would take that away when this pandemic is nearing being over. How could you give families £20 a week extra? They come to rely on it and then you withdraw it.
Well, first of all, it's there for another few months, and there's a budget on the 3rd of March when the Chancellor will set out exactly what he'll do for those families who really need that additional help. He's already done a lot. 280 billion has been pumped into the economy. There's another 55
families
billion.
on universal credit hang on to that extra £20 a week, which has now become part of their weekly budget?
So, as I said, that will go on for another few months. The Chancellor...
And after that point, should they keep it?
Well, before the end of it, the Chancellor will make a statement in the budget, and he'll tell you exactly, and he'll come on your programme and tell you exactly what he's doing to help those needy families. I am the vaccines minister. Your viewers want me to focus on delivering the vaccines.
OK, well, we will... Well, let's hope we do
do
get him on the programme then. Let's turn to vaccines, because there is a good story to be told on vaccines. And the government and Public Health England and NHS England all deserve good credit, indeed throughout the UK, for the delivery of the vaccines. But obviously we're also aware that despite the fact that every minute 140 people are getting the jab, we also know that every 30 seconds someone is currently being admitted to UK hospital with coronavirus. This is a race against time and against death.
It is. I've said this, Piers, it's a race against death. We're averaging 140 jabs a minute. We'll go even faster now. We've got another 10 national vaccination centres that have launched this week, 50 by the end of the month. We're already over the halfway mark in vaccinating the over 80s. Really important point. I really want to just get this across to your viewers. Anyone who's over 80 in an area where they haven't had the phone call or the text or the letter, you will absolutely be the priority. You will get that. We're only sending the letters to the over 70s today in areas that have done the majority of the over 80s. So I don't want anyone to worry that they're hearing that over 70s are being vaccinated in a neighbouring area, but they're not getting their vaccine.
What about people who work in supermarkets, who work in the Royal Mail, who work, you know, delivery drivers, police officers, and so on? Are they going to start getting prioritised for vaccine, regardless of age?
So the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation have set the criteria, the 9 categories of the most vulnerable, because actually age is the greatest determinant of death. The first 4 categories is 88% of mortality of death. The total 9 is 99% of mortality. That's phase 1. When we enter phase 2, we'll work with the Joint Committee to look at the priority. My instinct is like yours, to say anyone who through no fault of their own has to come into contact with the virus in much greater volume and probability should be protected. Teachers, police, men and women, shop workers, all those who need that additional protection. Now, some of them will be captured in the top 9 categories anyway, if they are really, you know, like the clinically vulnerable, for example, or if they are in that age group of the over 50s, which are category 9, effectively. They'll be captured in that. But phase 2, of course, will be guided by the JCVI. But my instinct is to say, if you work in a job, a shop worker, you know, a policeman or woman, any other profession, which brings you into contact with the virus unfairly, then I think you should be prioritised.
Nadhim Zahawi, how do we get the schools back open if we don't vaccinate the teachers? Is there an alternative plan?
So it's a combination of both cutting down, obviously, the mortality death rate, because when we get to the place where, you know, fewer people are dying, fewer people are being hospitalised, there's some really good early data from Israel where they vaccinated 20% of the over 60s, and they're beginning to see 2 weeks later, they're seeing a marked reduction in the serious illness and death in that same cohort. So we will, 2 weeks after the mid-February, we should be seeing a marked reduction in death and, of course, serious illness. We begin to gradually reopen, and schools will be a priority. The Prime Minister said he wants schools because they were last in. He was desperate to keep them open. As a last resort, we had to close them. Okay. He wants them first
People want hope, Minister, and they're getting it from the vaccine rollout. It's going very well. I give you due credit to you and everyone involved in this. It's good news, and I applaud you so far. How fast can we get up to? I mean, you're doing over 300,000 a day now. How quickly can we see those numbers really rise to dramatically effective numbers?
The limitation, Piers, is the vaccine supply. It is, you know, remains lumpy, but, you know, we're confident we can hit our mid-February target for the top 4 most vulnerable cohorts. But, you know, the NHS has built an infrastructure hospitals, primary care, GPs, national vaccination centres, pharmacies. I launched 6 pharmacies last week. There's 63 coming online this week. So the limitation at the moment is vaccine supply. The quicker I can get the vaccines in, the more we can do. But we're committed to the mid-February of the first 4 cohorts. Okay. 88% of mortality. And I'm grateful for you where you just keep getting the message out that people really should be careful. This new variant loves social interaction. Please, please, please refrain from that. Think before you actually even think about meeting someone outdoors for sort of a nice little social chat. Okay,
Minister, we hear you. Keep up the good work. We're depending on you. You know, the faster we get people vaccinated, the faster we get out of this. So wish you good luck and all your colleagues. Thank you very much.